whistle blew at 5, same as yesterday. It echoed off the concrete and faded away. I wiped the grease from my hands with an old red rag, hung my hard hat up and grabbed my faded jacket bag. The boys all headed out with the same slow stride, another day's worth of living tucked away inside. I stood a second longer by the factory gate, thankful for the work and the strength to carry the weight. The parking lot was glowing in the evening sun, rows of tired pickups waiting one by one. I slid behind the wheel and let the engine turn, watching shadows stretch across the fields of summer corn. The radio was humming some old country tune about a man and a woman and a love that came too soon. I smiled and shook my head at how the years can fly, then pointed that old Ford toward the western sky. The whistle blew at 5 and the workday let me go. Now the gravel road is calling and I got nowhere fast to go. Got a porch light waiting on me at the end of this day, and a woman who still asks me how things went anyway. I've carried steel and worries, done my best to stay alive, but the sweetest sound I know starts when the whistle blows at 5. Past the little diner by the county line, saw the neon flicker like it did back in '79. There was a young man standing where I used to be, full of plans and certain of what life was gonna be. I remember Daddy's words on a night much like this. He said, son, don't measure living by the things you miss. And somewhere down that highway with the windows down, I finally understood what he was talking about. The whistle blew at 5 and the workday let me go. Now the gravel road is calling and I got nowhere fast to go. Got a porch light waiting on me at the end of this day, and a woman who still asks me how things went anyway. I've carried steel and worries, done my best to stay alive, but the sweetest sound I know starts when the whistle blows at 5. The years leave lines upon your face and a little rust on every dream, but some things shine a little brighter than they ever did when you were green. A warm house, a steady hand, a family gathered near. Funny how the simple things mean more with every year. The whistle blew at 5 and the evening rolled in slow, past the church and gas station where the old familiar faces go. There's a photograph on the dashboard from a life we've built so far, and tonight the road back home feels worth every scar. I've carried steel and worries, done my best to survive, and every blessing I hold dear starts when the whistle blows at 5. The sun drops low beyond the fields, the headlights cut the dark alive. Another day behind me now, since the whistle blew at 5. Yeah, another day behind me now, since the whistle blew at 5.
Got a paper cup of coffee from the diner on Main, poured around 4:30, still tastes the same. Sits there on the dashboard beside a pair of gloves and a faded photograph of the girl I still love. The courthouse clock was striking as I rolled through town, past the hardware store they're finally tearing down. I caught the green light by the old feed mill sign and headed for the highway right on time. The evening crowd was thinning at the Phillips 66. A farmer filled his pickup while a kid washed windshields quick. I eased on past the county line where the blacktop starts to bend. Same road I've been traveling since I can't remember when. The coffee wasn't special, just warm enough to drink, but it gives a man some company when he's alone to think. And there's comfort in the little things that stay the way they are, like familiar roads and old guitars. Coffee cup on the dash, radio playing low, mile after mile through the country I know. The sun sinks easy behind fields of gold, memories ride shotgun wherever I go. I don't need much these days to help me unwind, just that coffee cup on the dash and a little time. I passed the fairgrounds gate where our boy won second place, showing cattle one July with a grin across his face. Seems like yesterday he was sitting where that coffee sits now, asking questions I can't even remember how. Now he's got a family and a pickup of his own, making his way through this world steady and strong. Funny how the years roll by like telephone poles in the dark, one by one, leaving their mark. Coffee cup on the dash, radio playing low, mile after mile through the country I know. The sun sinks easy behind fields of gold, memories ride shotgun wherever I go. I don't need much these days to help me unwind, just that coffee cup on the dash and a little time. There was a season in my life I was always chasing more, counting hours, counting dollars, looking past what mattered for. Now I find a quiet kind of wealth in an evening drive alone, knowing where I'm headed and knowing I've got a home. Coffee cup on the dash, nearly empty by now. The first stars are showing above the plowed ground. A porch light's waiting somewhere beyond the next bend.
ask how my day's been. The road keeps rolling underneath these worn out tires, and that coffee cup on the dash carries me a little higher. The town fades slowly in my mirror glass, just another evening slipping past, with a lukewarm cup and the highway's gentle hum. I've still got a few good miles before I'm home.
Highway 17 tonight, stretching straight and long. The tires hum a steady tune I've known most of my life alone. The grain elevates, fade behind the edge of town, and the last few lights in Miller Creek grow smaller, looking down. A farmer on a tractor's making one more pass through hay. The sky above the cornfields gives the daylight away. I crack the window half an inch and let the evening in. Feels like this old road and me have both been here again. There's a church out by the crossroads with white paint turning gray. I remember standing there the day we gave my dad away. A mile beyond the river bends beneath an old steel bridge, I can still see boys with fishing poles lined up along the ridge. Most of them are grandfathers now, some have moved away. A few names live only in conversations these days. The highway keeps on rolling like it always has before, carrying yesterday beside tomorrow's door. Highway 17 tonight under fading shades of blue, running through the heartland where the fields meet the moon. I ain't chasing anything, I ain't trying to leave, just letting this old blacktop give my mind some room to breathe. With both hands on the wheel and the radio low and light, I'm finding what I need on Highway 17 tonight. The sun is gone completely now, replaced by scattered stars, and the glow from distant farmhouses shines across the dark. I pass a little gas station where the neon still burns red, the same one where we stopped for Cokes when the kids were still at home instead. Funny how a simple place can hold so many years, 1,000 little moments that disappear but never disappear. They settle in beside you when the world gets quiet enough, like old friends you don't have to talk much with. Highway 17 tonight under fading shades of blue, running through the heartland where the fields meet the moon. I ain't chasing anything, I ain't trying to leave, just letting this old blacktop give my mind some room to breathe. With both hands on the wheel and the radio low and light, I'm finding what I need on Highway 17 tonight. There comes a time a man quits measuring his days by the miles he's gone or the money that he's made, and starts counting blessings in the glow of simple things, a faithful heart beside him and the peace that evening brings. Highway 17 tonight, carry me back home, past barns and gravel driveways and fields of freshly cut corn. The road ahead is open and the years behind her too, and somehow they both travel in the same rear view. The stars keep watch above me and everything feels right as I roll on through the darkness on Highway 17 tonight. The white lines drift beneath these worn out tires slow. Another mile behind me, a few more left to go. And somewhere past the next bend shines a familiar porch light, waiting at the end of Highway 17 tonight. Waiting at the end of Highway 17 tonight. There's a neon sign at Miller's Diner, glowing red and blue, standing by the roadside like it's always used to do. I can see it from the highway, half a mile away, just like every evening at the close of every day. I pulled in there one winter night back in '82. Snow piled high along the curb, the wind was cutting through. The waitress knew my first name and poured my coffee black. Some things change around the town, but not all of that. There's a booth beside the window where we used to sit, me and Mary, after church whenever money wasn't thick. We'd split a slice of apple pie and talk about our plans, wondering how we'd raise a family on a working man's hands. Now the jukebox in the corner's playing softer than before, and some of the folks I used to know don't walk through that door anymore. But if you stay around long enough, you learn that's how it goes. One face leaves, another comes, and the old place carries on. Neon at Miller's Diner, shining through the dark like a familiar voice calling to an old familiar heart. It's more than coffee pie and chrome beneath those lights. It's 100 little pieces of a well-lived life. Every time I pass that corner, memories come alive. In the neon at Miller's Diner tonight. I slowed down at the stoplight and looked across the lot. Saw a young couple laughing where me and Mary once got caught, staying way past closing time with nowhere else to be, just talking about tomorrow like tomorrow came for free. I smiled and drove on past them toward the county line ahead, thinking about all the miles between the living and the dead, and how the smallest places somehow hold the biggest part of the roads we've traveled through our hearts. Neon at Miller's Diner, shining through the dark like a familiar voice calling to an old familiar heart. It's more than coffee pie and chrome beneath those lights. It's 100 little pieces of a well-lived life. Every time I pass that corner, memories come alive. In the neon at Miller's Diner tonight, a man spends years chasing distant things, then one day he comes to find the places that stay with him longest are the ones he left behind. A booth, a smile, a rainy night, a waitress calling out his name. Funny how the simple moments are the ones that still remain. Neon at Miller's Diner, glowing steady as can be, watching over Highway 17 like it's watching over me. The coffee's probably fresh inside, the pie is probably warm, and somebody's making memories while another rides on home. The years keep moving forward, but some lights still survive, like the neon at Miller's Diner tonight. That red glow fades slowly in my mirror as I drive past the fields and gravel roads beneath the evening sky. But a part of me stays sitting in that booth beside the glass, where the neon at Miller's Diner still shines on the past. Yeah, the neon at Miller's Diner still shines on the past. The town lights disappeared about 10 miles ago. Now it's just the headlights and the white lines rolling slow. The radio keeps searching through the static in the dark, catching pieces of old songs before they fall apart. Some preacher from Missouri comes and goes between the noise. Then a country station somewhere south plays Merle for a while. I lean back against the seat and let the highway run, listen to voices drift from places I've never gone. I crossed another county line where the old sign barely shows. The paint's been peeling off it longer than anybody knows. There's a mailbox by a gravel road and a porch light burned late. Probably somebody waiting on somebody getting home again. The fields are dark and quiet now, the tractor's put away. Only the moon hangs over everything
stay clear as can be, and some come back stronger in the quiet between frequencies. The road gets lonelier, but somehow that's alright, with AM stations and county lines tonight. I thought about my oldest friend, Tommy Reed from school. We spent one summer hauling hay and breaking every rule. He moved out west in '73 and never settled back. Just a Christmas card every year and a phone call now and then after that. Funny how the miles can stretch between two lives so far apart, yet one old memory can bring a man right back to the start. I can still hear us laughing underneath the county fair lights, like it happened only yesterday night. AM stations and county lines, coming and going like old friends in my mind. Some memories fade, some stay clear as can be, and some come back stronger in the quiet between frequencies. The road gets lonelier, but somehow that's alright, with AM stations and county lines tonight. A younger man might fear the silence, try to fill up every mile, but age teaches you there's comfort in sitting still with your own thoughts a while. The world don't seem so complicated when it's just stars and dashboard light, and an old song finding its way through the night. AM stations and county lines, leading me home 1 mile at a time. The signal's growing weaker, but I still hear enough to remind me where I've been and all the people that I love. The farther that I travel, the more I realize life sounds a lot like AM stations and county lines. The static fades to nothing as another station dies. A farmhouse light glows distant beneath the midnight sky. I keep rolling through the darkness, feeling peaceful deep inside, with AM stations and county lines, just AM stations and county lines.
I passed the old grain elevator just outside of town, the same one where we'd gathered when the sun was going down. There was Tommy Reed and Bobby Jones and me at 17, leaning on our pickups, talking bigger than we'd been. We all had plans for somewhere else, places we would go. California beaches, Nashville lights, things we didn't know. The summer air smelled sweet with corn and diesel from the tracks. None of us imagined how fast the years would pass. There was a girl named Mary Collins with chestnut-colored hair. She worked the register at Wilson's Market Square. On Friday nights we'd park out back behind the elevator wall, sharing a bottle of soda while the crickets called. She talked about becoming a teacher one fine day. I talked about 100 dreams that mostly blew away. But every dream seemed possible beneath those August skies, when youth still lived in our eyes. Summer behind the grain elevator, when the nights felt long and the world felt wide. We were young enough to believe forever was waiting just beyond the county line. The years have carried us in different directions, but sometimes in the glow of a memory's light, I'm still standing behind that green elevator on a summer night. Tommy moved to Denver, Bobby stayed and farmed the land. Mary married me the spring after graduation plans. The roads we took were different than the ones we talked about, but looking back I can't say things didn't all work out. The elevator's weathered now, the paint has mostly gone, and half the boys I knew back then have families of their own. Still, every time I drive past there, I slow down for a while and see those kids again through a smile. Summer behind the grain elevator, when the nights felt long and the world felt wide. We were young enough to believe forever was waiting just beyond the county line. The years have carried us in different directions, but sometimes in the glow of a memory's light, I'm still standing behind that grain elevator on a summer night. You spend enough years living and one thing becomes clear: life isn't measured by the dreams you kept, but by the people who stayed near. And though those days are long gone, there's a part of me that remains in the laughter and the dust clouds beside those railroad trains. Summer behind the grain elevator, where the fireflies dance beyond the tracks. We thought the future was a highway, and none of us were looking back. Now the stars above the farmland still shine the way they did
The elevator fades behind me as I roll on through the dark, but some old memories keep glowing long after they depart. And tonight they're shining softly like a porch light left behind from a summer behind the grain elevator, still burning in my mind, still burning in my mind.
I stopped for gas in Harper County just before the light turned green. Reached into my wallet for a couple dollar bills and some change. That's when that old photograph slipped halfway into view, tucked behind my driver's license like it's always managed to do. The edges have grown softer and the colors faded thin, but I know every face that's looking back at me again. Taken at the county fair in the summer of '84, a moment somebody saved that I still carry more. There's Mary in her blue dress with her hair caught by the breeze, standing by our little girl who barely reached her knees. And our boy is on my shoulders holding cotton candy high, like he believed his father could lift him to the sky. We didn't have much money then, just an old rented place, but you can't see a trace of worry on a single face. Funny what a picture keeps and what it leaves behind, a frame full of the good parts frozen in time. The picture in my wallet has traveled every mile with me, through factory gates and highways and years that changed our family tree. When the road gets quiet enough and yesterday feels close at hand, I pull out that old photograph and hold a little piece of who I am. My daughters live in 3 states north with children of her own. My son farms 20 acres on the edge of town back home. Mary's got a few more silver strands than she did back then, and so do I, though neither one of us talks much about when. But every now and then she'll laugh at something from those days, and for a second all those years just seem to fall away, like we're still standing by that midway on a Friday night in June, under fairground lights and a harvest moon. The picture in my wallet has traveled every mile with me, through factory gates and highways and years that changed our family tree. When the road gets quiet enough and yesterday feels close at hand, I pull out that old photograph and hold a little piece of who I am. Time has a way of moving faster than a man believes it can. One day you're teaching children how to ride a bike, the next you're shaking a grown man's hand. But love leaves marks that don't fade easy,
No matter how the years may roll, some stay tucked inside a wallet. Some stay tucked inside your soul. The picture in my wallet may be worn and hard to see, but every crease and faded corner means a little more to me. It's not the paper that I'm holding or the faces that it shows. It's every road we've traveled together and every memory that grows. I slid it back behind my license and pulled out onto the road again. The stars were coming out above me and the night was settling in. But for a little while that photograph had brought those days to life. The picture in my wallet still riding with me tonight. Still riding with me tonight.
Friday nights in Walker County, you could hear the band play loud from the football field behind the school, where half the town turned out. The hardware store would close at 5, the diner stayed open late, and folks would fill the bleachers long before the opening play. I remember sitting with my dad up on the home side road, wrapped in an old plaid jacket when the October wind would blow. The lights would shine across the field like they always somehow knew. Those were the nights a young boy lived for all week through. After the game we'd head downtown, where Main Street came alive. Cars lined up bumper to bumper on a cool September night. The county fair would roll around with Ferris wheel lights bright, and every kid with a dollar bill thought the world felt just right. There was laughter by the midway and gospel from the tent, farmers swapping stories about how the harvest went. Nobody had much money, but nobody seemed to care. We all had somewhere we belonged there. Friday nights in Walker County still come back to me sometimes. The marching band, the fairground lights, and old friends frozen in my mind. The years keep moving farther down the road like fence posts passing by, but part of me still lives in Walker County Friday nights. Now the old field looks smaller than it ever back then, and some of the names on aren't the names they've always been. The movie house is boarded up, the feed store's finally gone, and a few familiar faces only live in memory now. But every town has seasons, just like every man does too. You hold on to what mattered and carry it with you. And I guess that's why these memories still feel warm and bright every time I think about those nights. Friday nights in Walker County still come back to me sometimes. The marching band, the fairground lights, and old friends frozen in my mind. The years keep moving farther down the road like fence posts passing by. But part of me still lives in Walker County Friday nights. Back then we thought the world was waiting somewhere past the county line. We were always looking forward, never thinking about time. Now I'd give a lot to spend an hour in one ordinary evening again, just to hear that crowd cheering and see those old friends. Friday nights in Walker County, the memories never really fade. The smell of popcorn in the cool night air, and the songs the jukebox played. The town may look a little different now, but some things survive deep inside a man's heart, like Walker County Friday nights. The highway keeps rolling beneath me, and the years keep rolling too. But tonight, beneath these stars, I can still see that old hometown view. And somewhere in the distance, those stadium lights still shine on Friday nights in Walker County, in this heart of mine, in this heart of mine.
I was 19 that summer, working long days in the heat, hauling sacks and loading trucks, just trying to make ends meet. I stopped by Carter's feed store one Friday afternoon to pick up fencing wire and a couple tools I'd use. That's when she came through the front door, carrying a paper list. Sunlight through the window caught a strand of hair I missed. She smiled at old Mr. Carter and thanked him for his time, and something told me right then she was worth remembering. I saw her twice the following week, then once again in town, at a church picnic by the creek where everybody gathered round. She was helping in the kitchen, pouring lemonade and tea, while I spent half the evening trying not to stare too obviously. Finally
asked her if she'd like to take a ride. She laughed and said she'd think about it, which felt enough that night. The next Saturday we drove the back roads after dark, talking like we'd known each other from the start. The girl at Carter's feed store never knew what she'd begin. One look across a wooden counter and my whole life started changing then. I thought I was just stopping by for a few things on my list, but the best thing I ever found was the girl at Carter's feed store. We married in the springtime at the church on Maple Street, with dogwoods blooming by the door and family filling every seat. There were years that weren't easy, times we barely got by, but she stood beside me through every low and every high. Now the dashboard clock keeps ticking and the road rolls underneath, and the woman waiting back at home is still the one I see. Every time that memory comes around once more, of the girl at Carter's feed store. The girl at Carter's feed store never knew what she'd begin. One look across a wooden counter and my whole life started changing then. I thought I was just stopping by for a few things on my list, but the best thing I ever found was the girl at Carter's feed store. Life doesn't always happen the way a young man plans. Sometimes it walks right through a doorway and quietly takes your hand. No grand signs, no big speeches, just a moment passing through that turns into a lifetime before you know it does. The girl at Carter's feed store still means everything to me, though the years have left a few more lines than either one of us can hide completely. The world outside keeps changing, but some blessings only grow, and every road I've traveled leads back to the girl at Carter's feed store. The stars are rising over fields the same way they did before, and somewhere waits the woman who walked through that old store door. Yes, somewhere waits the woman who walked through that old store door. The girl at Carter's feed store. The girl at Carter's feed store. We got married in the spring of '75 with $50 in the bank and all our dreams alive. Borrowed my uncle's pickup truck to haul our things around and moved into a double wide on the edge of town. The kitchen floor would creak at night, the roof leaked when it rained, the water heater quit twice that first November cold spell came. But every evening when I walked through that front door, I felt richer than I'd ever been before. She worked mornings at the diner, I worked overtime when I could. We learned how to stretch a paycheck farther than most people would. There were hand-me-down couches and curtains she sewed herself, and wedding gifts from family lining homemade wooden shelves. On Fridays we'd sit out on the steps and watch the sunset fall, talking about the children we'd someday have and all the places we might go once life got easier somehow, not knowing we were living the good years right then and now. 2 rings and a double wide, a little bit of faith and a lot of trying. We didn't have much money, but we had enough to build a life together out of simple love. Looking back through all these years and miles, I'd give anything to spend one more evening a while with 2 rings and a double wide. Then came our daughter in the summer of '78, and our boy a couple years later, right on fate's scheduled date. The hallway got a little crowded, the budget stretched out thin, but somehow every challenge pulled us closer in. I still remember Christmas mornings by that artificial tree, the kids tearing through wrapping paper while she smiled at me. The gifts weren't worth much money, but nobody seemed to mind. Those were some of the richest days we'd find. 2 rings and a double wide, a little bit of faith and a lot of trying. We didn't have much money, but we had enough to build a life together out of simple love. Looking back through all these years and miles, I'd give anything to spend one more evening a while with 2 rings and a double wide. Funny how a man spends half his life thinking better days are up ahead, then one day he finds the moments he misses most are the ones he already lived instead. The small rooms, the long talks, the dreams spread across the night, the things that seemed ordinary then now shine a little brighter in hindsight. 2 rings and a double wide, a young man and a young bride, a second-hand table and a borrowed bed, and a future neither one of us could fully ready yet. The years brought bigger houses and a few more things to own, but nothing ever felt quite like building that first home with 2 rings and a double wide. Tonight the highway carries me through the dark once more, past fields and towns and memories I've traveled through before. And somewhere in my heart that little place still survives, just 2 rings and a double wide. 2 rings and a double wide, and the best years of our lives. Highway's gotten quieter, the radio's turned low, and there's only 20 miles left before I make it home. I know she'll be in the kitchen, probably drying dishes clean, standing by that old Formica counter we've had since '83. The curtains move a little when the evening breeze blows through, and that light above the sink shines the way it always does. I've seen bigger houses in my time, brighter ones too, but none of them ever felt like that room. There were years when the kids were small and supper had to wait till I came through the back door after working late. Our daughter would run to meet me before I hit the porch, and our boy would show me every little thing he'd built that afternoon, of course. Now the house is mostly quiet and the children have moved on, but their pictures line the hallway and their laughter lingers on. Funny how a home keeps pieces of every passing year, long after those years disappear. The light in the kitchen window has guided me through more nights than I can count, through long work days and hard seasons, when life wasn't always working out. It's a small thing to most people, just a bulb shining soft and low, but it's the sweetest sight I've ever known. The light in the kitchen window, I remember one December when the factory cut back hours. Money got tight and worry settled heavy through the house. I sat awake one midnight wondering how we'd make it through. She put a hand upon my shoulder and said, "We'll do what we always do." Then she walked into the kitchen and left that light burning there, like a promise in the darkness, saying better days were near. And somehow every road since then has carried that memory along, making a weary man feel strong. The light in the kitchen window has guided me through more nights than I can count, through long work days and hard seasons, when life wasn't always working out. It's a small thing to most people, just a bulb shining soft and low, but it's the sweetest sight I've ever known. The light in the kitchen window. A man spends half his lifetime looking for something he can trust. Then one day he realizes love was waiting back at home for him all along. Not in grand gestures or big words, but in simple things that stay, like a light left on for somebody at the end of every day. The light in the kitchen window is coming into view
tonight. Beyond the fields and gravel roads, beneath the stars and porch light shine. And though the years have changed us, one thing remains true. That little light still says, welcome home, the way it always used to do. Yeah, it still says, welcome home, the way it always used to do. I turned down our driveway slowly, and the truck tires crunch the stone. The kitchen light is glowing softly, just like it's done for so long. And before I even reach the door, I know I'm not alone, thanks to the light in the kitchen window, leading me home, leading me home.
There was a year we barely spoke, though we lived beneath one roof, passing in the hallway like strangers passing through. I'd leave before the sunrise, come home long after dark, and every conversation seemed to stumble before it could start. The factory had cut back shifts, money weighed on my mind. I carried every worry home and kept it locked inside. She'd ask me what was wrong and I'd say, nothing much today. Looking back, I can still hear the hurt behind her face. Her coffee cup stayed on the counter every morning by the sink, but somewhere along the way we forgot how to sit and drink. The kids could feel the distance, though they never said a word. Sometimes silence in a house is the loudest thing you've heard. I'd sleep on my side of the bed, staring at the wall, too stubborn to reach across it, too proud to make the call. Funny how a man can fight so hard to hold his ground. He almost loses everything he's standing on. The year we barely spoke was the loneliest year I know. Not because she wasn't with me, but because I let her go a little farther every day, with every word I left unsaid. And a house can feel mighty empty when silence fills it instead. One rainy Sunday afternoon, she sat across from me at that old kitchen table where we'd shared so many dreams. She said, I don't need promises and I don't need perfect plans. I just need to know you're still the same man who held my hand. Then she cried for the first time in more years than I can say. And every wall I'd built inside me started giving way. Sometimes the truth arrives so simple and so clear. You wonder why it took so long to hear. The year we barely spoke was the loneliest year I know. Not because she wasn't with me, but because I let her go a little farther every day, with every word I left unsaid. And a house can feel mighty empty when silence fills it instead. Love doesn't always leave with slamming doors or disappear in a single night. Sometimes it waits across a kitchen table while two good people lose their sight of the reasons they started together and the promises they made, till one finally reaches out a hand and asks the other one to stay. The year we barely spoke could have been the end of us, but grace has a way of finding people when they've nearly run out of trust. We learned that being right ain't worth much when compared to holding on. And little by little we found our way back to where our hearts belong. Yeah, little by little we found our way back to where our hearts belong. Tonight the miles behind me fade beneath the dashboard glow, and she's still waiting at the house at the end of this road. Sometimes I think about that season and thank the Lord above that the year we barely spoke wasn't the year we lost our love. Wasn't the year we lost our love. First Thanksgiving after Dad was gone felt strange. The table looked the same, but nothing really stayed unchanged. Mama set out all the dishes he'd always loved the most, the sweet potatoes dressing and the turkey she would roast. The grandchildren filled the living room, laughter came and went, but every now and then our eyes drifted where he sat, an old wooden chair beside the window facing west, standing quiet with the rest. Dad wasn't much for talking, never needed to be loud. He'd tell a story now and then and somehow draw a crowd. After supper he'd lean back and loosen up his tie, then ask each grandkid questions while the evening passed by. That year nobody took his place, nobody even tried. Some spaces in a family's life are too big to fill inside, so we left that chair untouched until the meal was through, like somehow that seemed the right thing to do. The empty chair at Thanksgiving says more than words can say about the people who still like an empty chair at Thanksgiving, and the memories it keeps. Now it's been nearly 7 years since we laid him down to rest by the little church on Oak Hill, where he always said he felt blessed. Mama's hair has turned much whiter, and the grandchildren are grown. My daughter brings her children now, and my son brings his own. Still every November, when the family gathers near, somebody ends up telling one of Dad's old stories here. And for a little while, it almost feels like he's around, listening without making a sound. The empty chair at Thanksgiving says more than words can say about the people who still live with us long after they've gone away. The years keep moving forward, but some things never leave, like an empty chair at Thanksgiving, and the memories it keeps. Grief changes over time, it softens around the edge. The tears don't come as often, but the love never leaves instead. You stop looking for tomorrow to bring them walking through the door, and start thanking God for all the years you had them there before. The empty chair at Thanksgiving still waits beside the wall, while children laugh and dishes pass and autumn shadows fall. Bow our heads before the meal, and though his voice is gone, the blessing he taught us years ago still somehow carries on. Yeah, the blessing he taught us years ago still somehow carries on. Tonight the road stretches out before me, beneath the cold November sky, and I find myself remembering the man who shaped my life. Somewhere beyond these passing miles, beyond the hurt we keep, there's an empty chair at Thanksgiving, and the love that never leaves, a love that never leaves, a love that never leaves. Tommy Reed called me one Tuesday, sometime late in May. Said he'd be passing through the county on his way back from L.A. We talked about the old days and the boys we used to know. He laughed about a fishing trip from nearly 30 years ago. He said, next time I'm around here, we'll sit and catch up right. I told him that sounds good to me, we'll make some time one night. Then the whistle blew for break to end, and I said I'd call him soon. Neither one of us knew how short soon would be. Summer came and slipped away the way summers always do. Work got busy, life got crowded, and somehow months flew through. A Christmas card arrived that year with a picture of his place, a note about his grandkids, and a smile upon his face. I thought about picking up the phone more times than I can count, but there's always one more weekend when you think the time will work out. Then one February morning, Tommy's brother called, and suddenly there were no more calls. If I'd called one more time, what stories would we have shared? Would we have laughed about the trouble we found back when neither one of us cared? I'd tell him he was a good friend, the kind of man don't often find. Lord, there's a lot I'd give tonight if I called one more time. Now every time I pass the river where we used to fish for bass, I can hear his laugh rolling across the water from the past. And every county fair in August brings back another scene, two young fools with muddy boots and bigger dreams than these. The years have taught me many things, but one lesson stands apart. Don't leave words you need to say locked away inside your heart, because tomorrow isn't promised, no matter what we plan. That's something every grown man understands. If I'd called one more time, what stories would we have shared? Would we have laughed about the trouble we found back when neither one of us cared? I'd tell him he was a good friend, the kind of man don't often find. Lord, there's a lot I'd give tonight if I called one more time. We spend our lives believing there'll be another day to spare, another coffee, another visit, another chance to get somewhere. But life keeps moving quietly, and sometimes before we know, the words we meant to say become the words we'll never show. If I called one more time, I'd probably hear him laugh again. He'd ask about my family, and I'd ask how he'd been. Maybe nothing important, maybe nothing grand at all, just two old friends talking a while before the final curtain falls. Yeah, I'd give a lot to hear that voice on the other end of the line. If I called one more time. My father carried a pocket watch on a chain inside his vest, a silver one he'd gotten from his father, so he said. Every morning before sunrise, he'd wind it with his thumb, then slip it in his pocket before heading out to work. As a boy I'd sit and watch him at the kitchen table there, coffee steaming by the window, morning hanging in the air. Back then I thought that watch was just a tool to mark the day. I know a little more about it now. One evening after harvest, when I was 21, he handed me that pocket watch and said, my work here's mostly done. Then he smiled and told me, son, this thing won't make you rich, but it'll remind you every day what matters and what doesn't. He said, be where you say you'll be and do what you say you'll do. A man's word ain't worth much if nobody trusts in you. Then he closed my fingers round it and never said much more. He didn't have to say much more. My father's pocket watch still ticked steady in my hand, like the lessons he believed in and the way he chose to stand. Through good years and hard winters, through every road I've walked, I still hear his voice sometimes in my father's pocket watch. The glass is cracked a little and the silver's worn down thin. The chain has needed fixing more than once throughout the years, but every now and then I wind it up and hear it start, that quiet little rhythm, like a second beating heart. I carried it the day I married and the day my children came, and when we laid him on the hillside, it rode home with me again. Some things a man inherits have nothing much to do with gold, and mean more than he'll ever know. My father's pocket watch still ticks steady in my hand, like the lessons he believed in and the way he chose to stand. Through good years and hard winters, through every road I've walked, I still hear his voice sometimes in my father's pocket watch. Time has a way of humbling you. The older that you grow, one day you're following your father, the next you're leading sons of your own, and you hope the things that matter to him will somehow carry through, long after your own hands grow still and your years are finished too. My father's pocket watch may someday belong to my boy, along with all the simple truths his grandfather employed. To live honest, love your family, and leave this world a little better off. That's the real inheritance I found in my father's pocket watch. Yeah, that's the real inheritance I found in my father's pocket watch. Tonight the highway stretches onward under stars and harvest skies, and that old watch rests in the glove box as the miles keep rolling by, still keeping time.
has, through loss and love and all I've got. Just me and memories carried on in my father's pocket watch. My father's pocket watch.
I passed the old grain elevator just outside of Cedar Bend. Saw a rusted tractor sitting where it's always been. For a minute I was 20, with the whole world up ahead, thinking every road I choose would lead where I was meant. The sunset hit the windshield and turned the fields to gold, but that young man in the mirror's gone farther than he knows. And the highway kept unfolding underneath these worn out tires, like it always has before. I've chased a few wrong turnings, I've let good chances slide. I've carried some regrets with me on late and lonely drives. I've stood beside fresh graves and held new babies in my arms, watched seasons change the faces on the farms. Every mile left something with me, every mile took something too. That's a bargain life keeps making, whether planned or overdue. You can pull off at a roadside stop and rest a little while, but you can't stay there long. Miles don't turn back once they're rolling underneath your wheels. The road behind grows smaller, no matter how close it still feels. You can revisit old memories, trace every faded track, but time keeps moving forward. Miles don't turn back. There's a church outside of Harper where my father used to pray, and a house along Route 9 where my children learn to play. Sometimes I drive by both of them when I'm passing through that way, just to see how much has changed and what remains. The white paint's peeling thinner and the oak tree's standing tall. The swing set's long been taken down behind the backyard wall, but life was never meant to wait inside those photographs. It's meant to carry on. Miles don't turn back once they're rolling underneath your wheels. The road behind grows smaller, no matter how close it still feels. You can revisit old memories and trace every faded track, but time keeps moving forward and miles don't turn back. I used to think that growing older meant having all the answers clear. Now I know it's mostly learning how to live with what brought you here. The good and bad together, the losses and the love, all become part of the distance that you're made of. Miles don't turn back, and maybe that's a mercy after all. Every mistake and blessing helped build the man behind this wheel tonight. The past is worth remembering, but it wasn't built to last. So I thank God for the memories and leave them where they rest, 'cause the road still runs before me, and miles don't turn back. The dashboard lights are glowing and the county lines close by. A porch light waits somewhere ahead beneath this evening sky. I take one last look in the mirror and settle in and face the black. The future's somewhere down this road, and miles don't turn back. Miles don't turn back. Just past midnight on Highway 6, the traffic's all but gone. Only a string of distant lights and the hum I'm leaning on. A truck stop sign glows red behind me, fading in the dark, and the moon hangs over winter fields like a lantern in God's yard. I've spent years chasing things I thought a man was supposed to chase, working overtime and measuring life by what I could replace. But out here with these quiet miles, some truth comes shining through, clearer than they used to do. The old pickup's got 200,000 miles and then some more. The paint is faded, seats are worn, and there's rust around the door. But it still gets me where I'm going, same as it always has. A lot like the people in my life who stood beside me through the years. The friends who showed up when times were hard, the woman who stayed through all my faults, the children who grew up way too fast while I was making plans. Those are the things that last. What matters after midnight, when the road is long and still, ain't the things you thought were important when you were climbing every hill. It's the hands you've held, the promises you've kept, the voices waiting back at home long after the day's regrets. That's what matters after midnight. I pass the little church in Ashton where the steeple catches light, and I think about the prayers I prayed on lonely drives at night. Some were answered in ways I wanted, some in ways I never knew. Looking back, most all of them carried me through. You learn a few things growing older that nobody explains, how some losses leave an ache behind and some joys remain, and how gratitude comes easier when you quit keeping score of what you're still reaching for. What matters after midnight, when the road is long and still, ain't the things you thought were important when you were climbing every hill. It's the hands you've held, the promises you've kept, the voices waiting back at home long after the day's regrets. That's what matters after midnight. The stars don't ask how much you've earned or how far you've come. They shine the same on every soul beneath them one by one.
richest parts of living were always given free. What matters after midnight is a porch light burning warm, a faithful heart beside you through every kind of storm, a father's lessons carried on, a friend's remembered laugh, a table full of family, and enough time left to ask for one more day to be thankful for every blessing in sight. Yeah, that's what matters after midnight. The clock rolls past 12:30 and the county line is near. The darkness doesn't feel so heavy with these thoughts right in here. I ease my foot off the gas a little and let the old truck take its time. 'Cause what matters after midnight is already mine, already mine.
I turned off Highway 17, where the blacktop starts to bend, onto a narrow county road I've known since I was 10. The mailbox by the fence line still leans a little east, and Johnson's cattle gather where the creek runs through the trees. The radio fades to static, so I roll the window down, listen to the tires hum across familiar ground. There's something about these back roads that settles a man's mind after carrying too much all day long. The moon is hanging low tonight above the harvested fields, silver laying on the furrows where the summer corn once stood. A dog barks from a farmhouse somewhere off beyond the hill, and a porch light burns in the distance, steady as it will. I spent the day chasing deadlines, worrying over things that seemed so big this morning and now don't mean a thing. Funny how a little distance can change the way you see what's worth holding on to. Back roads and moonlight have a way of slowing time. They smooth out all the rough edges a man picks up in life. The farther that I travel, the more I find it's true. Back roads and moonlight can bring you back to you. I pass the old church cemetery where generations sleep, people who worked these same fields and prayed these same beliefs. My father rests among them now, beneath an oak tree shade, and somehow that thought feels comforting instead of sad today. Maybe peace comes quietly, not all at once, but slow, like moonlight crossing gravel roads wherever you may go. 1 mile at a time it finds the places deep inside you didn't know were tired. Back roads and moonlight have a way of slowing time. They smooth out all the rough edges mix up in life. The farther that I travel, the more I find it's true. Back roads and moonlight can bring you back to you. The world can get so noisy with all the things we chase, but out here there's only crickets and the stars in their place. And somewhere in that stillness you remember what you've known. The best parts of living are waiting back at home. Back roads and moonlight lead me through these gentle miles, past fields and fences, memories and dreams beneath a patient sky. I've learned not every answer comes from something new. Sometimes back roads and moonlight remind you what is true. Yeah, back roads and moonlight remind you what is true. The gravel softly crackles as I near the final bend, and I can see a porch light glowing like an old familiar friend. Tonight the weight I carried feels lighter than it did, thanks to back roads and moonlight. Back roads and moonlight. Back roads and moonlight. Curved past the river where the sycamores stand tall, and there against the evening sky I saw it through it all. A church steeple in the distance rising over fields of hay, the same one I've been looking at since I was young and gray seemed far away. The bell hasn't rung in years this late, but I still know it's there, standing watch above the valley like a quiet answered prayer. I've driven these roads burdened down by worries of my own, wondering if I'd done enough or where the years had gone. I've carried grief and second thoughts, mistakes I can't undo, and nights when faith felt smaller than the troubles I went through. But that steeple on the horizon has seen harder times than mine, and it's still pointing toward heaven after all this time. The church steeple in the distance reminds me when I lose my way, there's something bigger than my troubles watching over every day. Through the storms and through the sunshine, through the years that slipped away, that church steeple in the distance still has something left to say. My father sat in the third row on the right-hand side each week. Mama sang the old hymn softly with a strength she didn't speak. I stood beside them Sunday mornings in a hand-me-down coat, learning faith ain't always shouting, sometimes it's simply hope. Now most of those folks are gone on home, their names carved into stone, but the lessons that they gave me still travel where I roam. The church steeple in the distance reminds me when I lose my way. There's something bigger than my troubles watching over every day. Through the storms and through the sunshine, through the years that slipped away, that church steeple in the distance still has something left to say. The older that I get, the less I claim to know, but I believe we're carried more than we carry on our own. And grace can find a tired soul out on a lonely road when he finally lays his burdens down and lets them go. That church steeple in the distance stands beneath the evening stars, a reminder that forgiveness can reach us where we are. I've made peace with old regrets now and found gratitude along the way, thanks to that church steeple in the distance and the faith that chose to stay. Yeah, that church steeple in the distance and the faith that chose to stay. The moon climbs higher over farmland and the county line draws near. The dashboard glows a little softer than it did earlier this year. I tip my hat toward the horizon as that silhouette fades from sight. That church steeple in the distance will be there tomorrow night. Tomorrow night. I turned off the county road and eased through the gate. Dust settled behind me, getting late. The mailbox leaned the same way it's leaned for years, and I could see the porch through the cottonwoods here. Lord, I followed a lot of roads under different skies, but tonight they all led back to this driveway. The engine ticked softly when I shut it down. Crickets took over as the only sound. There were tire swings hanging where the children played, though they're grown and gone now, some things stayed. And through the screen door glow, I could almost see every season this old place has given me. That porch light's still on at the end of the day, like it's been through every mile I've driven away. Through the hard years, the good years, the things we went through, there was always one light I could count on shining true. When the world feels bigger than a man can understand, that porch light's still on, and I'm home again. She met me at the doorway with silver in her hair, the same steady smile that's always been there. No grand words waiting, no questions to explain,
just her hand in mine, like an old refrain. And all the things I carried seemed lighter somehow, standing in that warm kitchen now. That porch light's still on at the end of the day, like it's been through every mile I've driven away. Through the hard years, the good years, the things we went through, there was always one light I could count on, shining true. When the world feels bigger than a man can understand, that porch light's still on, and I'm home again. I've watched neon signs flicker out in the rain, seen old towns change and good friends fade away, but some promises hold stronger than time, and one of them's waiting at the end of this drive. That porch light's still on at the end of the day, just like it was when our lives were young and brave. Past the memories, the heartaches, the lessons I've learned, it's the place I've always left and always returned. And after all these years, I finally understand, that porch light's still on, and I'm home again. The night settles easy across the land. She takes my arm and we walk in hand in hand. The road is behind me, the day's finally gone, and thank God tonight, that porch light's still on.